This weekend, Fed Chairman Jerome Powell caught a charge, and he's saying that it's the Trump administration using lawfare to kind of put pressure on him to drop interest rates. Some real banana republic stuff, and I'm not really talking chinos and underpriced cashmere, okay? Heavy stuff. And not just that, crypto Twitter is freaking out because the algorithm isn't working in their favor. They've been beefing with Nikita Beer. Throw him up on the screen. Funny looking fella. We'll talk about him a little bit more later. One blockchain is set to burn millions of tokens. Stick around and find out which. This is unpriced risk. Let's get into it. Number one, segment one, the Fed's independence is dying. Jerome Powell, everyone's number one sweetie pie, baby boy who runs the Fed, he's been a real straight shooter, hasn't he? He's been monitoring the interest rates. He's not been super aggressive in terms of hikes or cuts. He seems to have been very responsive to data over the last couple of years. He's a pretty well-respected figure, I'd say, in government. Probably one of the more respected, even if you want the interest rates to come down. No one's saying that he's really corrupt. That's why it was such a surprise when he got hit with a subpoena, threatening him with criminal indictment. Now, the story that we've been told is that this is about building renovations, right? The Fed is undergoing some building renovation programs, so they've gotten money from Congress, and Jerome Powell's got to be reporting on these updates. Now, what the Trump administration is stating is he hasn't been like on top of the reporting, or they want to know why the costs have ballooned so much, which is kind of ironic considering the ballroom they built cost $400 million, but whatever. It's pretty obvious to most people, and in my opinion, look, it's not a statement of fact. In my opinion, this is a pretty obvious retaliatory measure because Jerome isn't budging on the interest rates. If you remember last month, he did not cut them. He held them steady, which made sense considering they had very little economic data to go off of. So anyway, they've subpoenaed him, and he's coming out swinging, right? He dropped a video today, and let's play the clip.
The threat of criminal charges is a consequence of the Federal Reserve setting interest rates based on our best assessment of what will serve the public, rather than following the preferences of the president.
So let's connect the dots a little bit more. Trump's been demanding rate cuts for a year. Powell has been saying he's going to work off the data. And Trump's not liking it. Trump's been calling for his resignation like a lot lately. So why does Trump want to get him out so bad when Powell's going to be out in 4 months anyway? Well, it's pretty simple. The president does get to nominate a new Fed chair when the old Fed chair steps down. Jerome's on the board. His term to be on the board is actually longer than his term as the chair. So when he's done with his chairmanship, he actually just goes back to being on the board of directors, meaning he gets to say in the vote and all that stuff. Trump probably wants him out, one, so he can start those rate cuts faster, maybe get ahead of midterms, and two, so that he can appoint someone else on the board and kind of stack it in his favor. It's pretty blatant politicking. I'm not going to say Trump's the first guy to ever do something like this, but it's the first time it's been so egregious and that we've had such a public battle over it. As you saw in that video, it was pretty serious. Pretty serious guy, Jerome Powell, about what he thinks is going on. So let's talk about what the markets are missing here. Global capital flows depend on one assumption, that the Fed is independent, right? Everything in the new world order, as we know it, the global order, why people like to buy American assets, American bonds, American dollars, it's all because they believe that America is a very stable country, fundamentally, and particularly fiscally. Everyone banks on the fact that the Federal Reserve is an independent institution, that the American Central Bank that issues the currency is not subject to the political demands of the White House or Congress. Not partially independent, not sometimes independent, not independent on the weekends. It's independent all the time, fully, totally. And if that breaks, we're not talking about 2% pullbacks in your favorite asset. We're talking about $1 trillion in global economy getting completely fucked, dude. We're talking about shit going crazy, all right? We're talking about gold and silver skyrocketing. Let's throw that chart up. This is the real unpriced risk here on the crypto side. This could be and should be the most bullish moment for Bitcoin ever because it's proof of what Bitcoiners have been saying since 2009, that fiat financial institutions can't be trusted, right? They're subject to political motivations. They're not thinking about the fiscal realities of the situation or what's best for everyone. They're thinking about what's good for them. And this is kind of the truest point of that. One thing I will say about the Fed is a lot of people make statements about them being co-opted and the like. conspiratorially. I've seen stuff saying like the Rothschilds own all the banks, so they actually run the Fed. Maybe, I don't really know. But one thing I do know is when I email the Fed for economic forecasts and the like, they actually do respond. They employ economists who make decisions. They're not just doing it so that they can win elections. They don't really care about elections like that. They care about the financial health of the economy overall. Now, if the Fed, the most neutral institution, becomes politically co opted, then what Bitcoiners have been saying becomes true. You cannot depend on the currency at all. Powell getting indicted is the mother of all validation moments for Bitcoiners, okay? That's why it's curious when we look at the Bitcoin chart after the last statement. This is a very public blowup. It's also turning into a bit of a constitutional crisis. We have a Republican Senator, Tom Tillis, who sits on the banking committee, saying he's not going to appoint anyone to the Fed until the situation is resolved. So if Jerome does leave, we might be looking at some periods of pretty serious instability where the Fed is not even functioning properly. Keep that in mind. Some polymarket bets maybe for you. Crypto Twitter has been in a tizzy lately, and it's because Nikita Beer had a little slip up. Nikita Beer being the head of product or some crap. He's responsible for the algorithm at X, right? Now the problem is Nikita said something like crypto Twitter is killing itself because all their stupid GM posts, they're fucking up their reach meter. What he meant by that is supposedly on the X algorithm, you only have a certain number of posts that get shown to your followers. So if you're doing a bunch of low quality posts, it doesn't get socialized. This is in contrast to the Twitter algorithm worked before it became X. When it was just Twitter, cluster you around people like your followers and people that shared your interests. And if your post went viral with them, no matter how many you posted, if your post went viral with them, you would blow up in that cluster and you'd get pushed into another cluster. And if you got successful with them, you see concentric rings of people liking you, popularity, right? But that's not how the X algorithm works now. The X algorithm works now specifically just off of, well, you're going to take 20 of your posts, we're going to see how they perform, and then we're going to socket you into like categories. They do this because they want to have a front page structure. All right, I do want to talk about what this kind of actually means for crypto markets, because I think this is actually a pretty significant development. I think it's just become clear, more and more clear over the last few months, maybe even years, that crypto Twitter has really lost its luster. It really doesn't have as much alpha or new information. It's not as useful for discovery as it used to be. And it's not just Nikita tweaking the algorithm. Some of it has to do with evolution of crypto culture. Things like Kaido, right? We've kind of slopified our own ecosystem. The grifters dumping on their followers. This has generated a really negative valence for crypto social media. Look at every crypto social media app. Does any of it do well? Base app, the most successful one right now. People hate it, dude. No one makes any money over there. You have to pay to like posts. Who cares, dude? That sucks. All these places are missing the key thing. The social media is supposed to be social. You're supposed to encourage people to communicate and share ideas and form actual connections. That's not happening anymore. X is no longer a social media site. X is a propaganda machine. X is like a hate machine. It's an obscenity machine. It's a thing that's just designed to outrage you and capture your attention and retain it for as long as possible. And it does so by exposing you to political things you don't like or do like and making you into a little partisan warrior. Now, what does this mean for crypto? What it means is it's a lot harder to get your apps discovered. It's a lot harder to build those communities. That's why you have to join something like a Telegram, like the GM Sonic Telegram, where you can be around like-minded people like me who care about crypto and want to learn new things. I'll see you in there. Speaking of the GM Sonic Telegram, let's talk about what's happening on Sonic, because there's a couple things I want to touch on. One, X402 integration is pretty big. Two, there's a whole lot of tokens being burned. There's been a lot of controversy in the community about this glut of tokens that's on the network as a result of the airdrop Season 2 not being concluded. There's also a bunch of airdrop tokens that were never claimed. Now, you have until January 18th to claim them if you haven't claimed them already. And if you don't, it's all being burned, which is a lot of supply contraction. We're talking about millions and millions of tokens. They're talking about 49.2 million tokens being burned. That's quite a lot. Should be super bullish for a lot of users. But the thing is, it's flying under the radar right now. Okay, no one's talking about it. Another thing no one's really talking about is X402 integration on Sonic, which is pretty big. X402, if you don't know what it is, I mean, I barely know what it is, but I'll explain it like this. You pay per API call. You pay per content unlock. Basically, you can monetize data streams and API calls and pay for them with your crypto wallet, which opens up a lot of doors for a lot of new products and protocols on the network. So I'm really looking forward to seeing what people build because I think it's going to be pretty exciting. But again, something people are kind of sleeping on. Guys, you got to check out, you got to get in that GM Sonic Telegram and learn about this stuff. In between the whining and moaning, you sometimes get some good information. So what did we learn today? One, the United States is entering its century of humiliation. It's on the verge of collapse. The Federal Reserve is in battle with the White House, and fiscal policy is at major risk. Crypto Twitter is melting down. It's a house on fire. It's harder than ever to get discovery in crypto, and it's harder than ever to get people's attention. No one cares about crypto anymore, at least in Twitter. Next week, we'll see if Powell is continuing the good fight, how that situation develops, if CT fixes itself, or if everyone just moves on to the next drama. I'm probably just going to move on to the next drama if I'm being honest with you. My big takeaway from this episode is that I think this Powell situation is going to get a lot worse before it gets better. So I would price in a lot of instability over the next coming weeks until we see some kind of clarity, some kind of equilibrium. Now that's unpriced risk. Thank you for your time. The links will be below for all my sources and all my other fun stuff. And I'll see you guys next Monday. Thank you. Yeah, well, be sure to leave a like and a retweet too. I need